Welcome back, Nurglings. Today we're taking a look at the ways of the Beastmen. But before we start, be sure to comment, like and subscribe so you don't miss an update. In many respects, the society and hierarchy of the Beastmen is almost as sophisticated as those of humans. Its structure is rigid, so that every member of a tribe knows his or her place, is completely aware of which other beastfolk are higher and which are lower in the hierarchy. Very unchaotic, you may think. Yet movement within this hierarchy is always possible. Any member can challenge the leader or any other member at almost any time, whether formally or informally. The Beastmen live by the base laws of nature, twisted beyond recognition by the corrupting influence that is chaos. Though they may walk upright and speak, albeit in guttural tones, the Beastmen are as close to animals as they are to men. Violence simmers beneath the surface of every exchange, each Beastman seeking every opportunity to enforce his superiority over all others. Domination is enforced with bloody violence, and every Beastman quickly learns his place under the heel of the war herd's chieftain. Should any one of their numbers show weakness, the victim will suffer for it, and his position within the war herd will be diminished. In more understandable terms, the Beastmen follow a violent hierarchy based upon the overall prowess of a Beastman, as well as what kind of breed the particular Beastman is. Those that possess exceptional strength and bear the greatest blessings of the dark gods, such as magnificent curling horns, occupy the higher tiers of their tribes. Those Beastmen that possess small horns or none at all, such as the lowly breeds of Ungor and Bray, are always below those who do, such as the Gore and Minotaurs. Hence, each war herd is led by the strongest and most bestial amongst their numbers, who are collectively known as Beast Lords. These primitive chieftains occupy the apex of tribal authority. It is his absolute right to rule as he pleases, provided that he has the strength to back it up. To maintain his position, he has to continually fight off challenges from his many jealous and power-hungry subordinates. He makes a totem from the pelts of those he has defeated to prove his right to rule, making his personal banner a gory record of his deeds and conquests. One day, though, a challenger will come who is stronger, younger, and far more vigorous than the current incumbent, and then the chieftain's own hide will hang bleeding in the wind from the challenger's totem. From here, this vicious cycle is repeated again and again without end. Status within a beast tribe is typically regulated by the strongest individuals within the group. Those wishing to obtain a higher position simply have to challenge an opponent of higher status in a brutal and often fatal duel. The only exception is the Ungor and Bray, those beastmen or other mutants who are not graced with the horns that are the most distinctive feature of this race. No Gore or horned beastman would consent to being ruled by an Ungor or Bray, no matter how skilled or powerful the lesser beastman might be. In any case, such a situation never occurs in practice. Ungor and Bray are simply weaker and less physically imposing than Gores. The occasional spirited Ungor who might step out of line is quickly torn to shreds by the Gore of the tribe. Mutants who do not have at least one animalistic feature, even if it is so minor as enlarged fang-like teeth, are rarely accepted into Beastmen bands, even as Ungor, but sometimes form their own tribes, sometimes led by outcast Gore or other powerful chaos creatures. Above the ordinary Gore are the Bestigor, large and powerful beastmen that occupy the highest position within their tribe, just below the Beast Lord himself. Some powerful Gors have too much ambition to be willing to serve as a Vestigor and force their way up the hierarchy still further. At this point, these Gor leaders are known by many names, such as Beast Lords, Foe Renders, Gouge Horns, War Gors, Bane Beasts and Bane Gor. From here, the hierarchy becomes more complex. These different names are not merely local affectations, but precise statements of rank. These various Gor leaders will work together, each with their own smaller warband, banding together under one supreme leader of each horde. Fortunately, such cooperation is relatively rare, and the typical traveller will be most unlucky to be attacked by a Beastman herd that is led not by one, but multiple leaders. The Beastmen all worship the gods of chaos as the one true divine power of the old world. They are the product of their corruption and, as such, are wholly dedicated to the spreading of their will across all lands and beyond. As these Beastmen pursue their endless hunt against all civilization, some Beastmen commit such acts of savagery and bloodshed that the attentions of the dark gods themselves are turned their way. Ordinarily, the ruinous powers pay little heed to the deeds of the Beastmen, knowing that the children of chaos will enact their will regardless of any gifts or rewards offered. The Beastmen are utterly enthralled to the magnificence of chaos, and are thus totally free of any constraints imposed by these malign gods upon their thoughts and actions. They do as they please, and, in doing so, serve chaos with every shred of their being. Though they do not truly comprehend it, the Beastmen are a vital part of the ruinous power's eternal quest to subsume the world in a roiling, turbulent tide of unreasoning change and constant war. It is the Beastmen that tear down the elegant elven waystones that hold the power of chaos in check and replace them with herdstones, primitive shrines that corrupt the earth around them. It is the Beastmen that hunt down and kill those who would otherwise remain out of the reach of the Chaos Gods. It is the Beastmen who plague the civilizations of mankind, ensuring that their people shall not progress past their primitive states for centuries to come. So it is that the Cloven Wands remain at the forefront of the war against order and light, a war that only continues to escalate to apocalyptic proportions. Campsites are often set up around the sacred herdstones that are scattered throughout the dark forests of the old world. Sometimes referred to as the Chaos Heart, herdstones are sacred to the Beastmen. All manner of offerings are left there to appease and earn the favour of the gods. Weapons, armour, the banners of vanquished foes, and the corpses of mutilated enemies can all be found piled around the base of these stones. The herdstones are always erected in places of magical significance, usually over one of the baleful meteors that brought the Beastmen into being all those ages ago. They are well hidden, and there are almost always Beastmen warherds and Minotaur tribes nearby because of it. The floor of the clearing in which the herdstone stands is often strewn with an ankle-deep carpet of bones, the remains of the captives taken in battle and sacrificed by the Bray shamans to the dark glory of the ruinous powers. Most herdstones are located far from human settlements, for no such settlement founded near one has survived more than a single season. They are often found hidden in the darkest and most inaccessible parts of the forests, deep within caves or on mountain tops. Any intrusion within 100 leagues of a herdstone will cause every war herd in the region to descend upon the intruder with unrelenting wrath. Sometimes particularly powerful Minotaurs take up the role of the keepers of the herdstones, becoming the fearful guardians of these most sacred Beastmen shrines. To gather the warbands, a raging signal fire is lit in the centre of the herdstone circle. Often, shamans throw mind-altering herbs upon the blaze, sending up great swaths of strangely coloured smoke curling into the sky. This fire is stoked with wood and carrion, left to burn for days on end. Over the following nights, other beastmen will slowly gather at the sacred stones, attracted by the fire and the smell of burning fat. Each arriving chieftain scratches his name or mark onto the central stone in the crude beastman version of the Dark Tongue, known simply as the Beast Tongue, and his warband sets up camp. It is at the herdstones that most of the important celebrations and festivals of the beastmen take place. They are the rallying points where warbands can meet and join together without fighting breaking out instantly. They are also the place for feasting, most importantly the ritualistic Champions Feast, where the flesh of slain chieftains is consumed by the herd. Like the Skaven, the beastmen have a difficult time forming the words of the Dark Tongue with their malformed bestial maws. As a result, they use a crude mixture of Dark Tongue, body movements, grunts, clicks and pops, which is collectively called the Beast Tongue. This language sounds more like noise than a sophisticated language, being not much more than an indescribable array of muttering growls and grumbling. Added to this are the shrieks, howls and bleats that beastmen use to punctuate and emphasize their phrases. Many scholars often have considerable debate whether beastmen speak a language at all, but regardless of prevailing opinions, beastmen are still fairly intelligent despite their brutish aspect, and the fact that some of their kind cannot speak at all. They use their tongue effectively, conveying a wide range of subjects and concepts. The beast tongue is beyond mankind's ability to speak. In the rare instances when beastmen deign to talk with humans, they use a mix of basic dark tongue, body language and gestures, only descending to beast tongue when frustrated. For their written language, the beastmen use a simplified form of the phonetic runes used in Dark Tongue to mark herdstones or to leave messages for other members of their herd. These are always crude, for beastmen lack the precision needed to write clearly. Most beastmen use their bodily wastes instead, finding the experience far more rewarding than taking the time to scribble something on a rock. The beastmen build no cities, for order and construction are anathema to them. They roam far and wide, following the scent of fresh meat and hunting down whatever wanders into the ancient hunting grounds that the beastmen patrol. All the lands of the old world are regarded as these very same hunting grounds. It has always been so since the coming of chaos in a distant and legendary age. The beastmen are tough and strong, for they must compete with the unimaginable horrors that haunt the woods. Beneath the dark forest canopy, the beastmen are often the prey of yet more disturbing creatures. Though the beastmen dwell within the forests, they rarely stay in one location for long. Instead, they move from place to place along ancient paths within the territory of each war herd, occasionally encroaching upon the domains of other tribes or making new paths through the civilized lands of man. Though no sane man can make sense of it, there is sometimes a pattern to these movements, sudden changes of direction, or an uncanny coordination between disparate warbands that hint at a far grander plan. The vast forests of the old world are crossed by a spider's web of paths only the beastmen know. Where these paths cross, there is to be found a site that is in some way significant to the Cloven Ones. These beast paths are located deep within the forests, far from the towns and highways of man, yet they are far from hidden. Though native to the deep woods, the beastmen are not naturally creatures of concealment and guile. When passing through the dense woodlands, they simply barge their way through the foliage and trample flat the undergrowth. Over millennia of use, the beast paths have become deep ruts in the ground, strewn with the bones of enemies and other detritus. So dense is the undergrowth that grows on the embankments that the chances are that no human tracker or huntsman seeking a beast path would find one simply by pure coincidence. Any huntsman who have managed to stumble upon a beast path would be extremely wise to turn and flee, for a war herd might be travelling the path, and his own bones may soon be added to those discarded upon it. Occasionally, two beastmen war herds will run into one another whilst travelling in opposite directions along a beast path. In such cases, the chieftains of each tribe will barge their way to the fore and meet in the centre of the pathway to decide which tribe will stand aside and allow the other to pass. Amidst much bravado, the chieftains will engage in displays of power until one either stands aside or, far more likely, the two come to blows. The ensuing combat will consist of the two chieftains clashing horns and headbutting each other until one is knocked unconscious and the winner determined. The winner's tribe will then pass along the beast path, the gnashing and snarling gore only pausing to relieve themselves upon the prostrate form of the defeated chieftain. When a halt is called, the beastmen establish temporary sites from which to launch their merciless invasions of the surrounding territory. After these violent events, the beastmen would then return to their sites and celebrate their victories in overt displays of feasting and brawling. Being highly nomadic, the tribe usually stay in one place only for a short period of time before moving on to find another suitable site in their hunting grounds. Beastmen war bands will often roam for hundreds of miles before setting up camp again, frequently battling other beastmen for the choicest spots. Beastmen camps are crude affairs, often consisting of little more than a large central bonfire surrounded by a mass of roughly hewn animal skins. Sometimes other skins, often still matted with gore, will be held up by sticks and branches to form makeshift tents. The more powerful beastmen, such as the Minotaurs and the Bestigor, take up the positions closest to the fire and closest to the food. The smaller Ungor are pushed to the extreme outskirts of the ring, and it has been known in winter for the weaker runts to perish. Wild Chaos Hounds prowl around the edges of the campsite, fighting over discarded bones and often preying on the smallest beastmen. In other camps, hounds and hideously mutated spawn, their bulk covered in matted fur, are kept in rough pens of sharpened stakes, where they are taunted and starved until set loose in battle. The treetops all around the encampment are haunted by harpies, twisted beings that from a distance appear as winged and shapely humans. These creatures follow the tribe wherever it goes, attracted by the remains of sacrificed victims scattered about the encampment. They squabble constantly for the choicest pickings of the food the beastmen discard. To stumble upon a beastman camp is not only to witness a cacophonous vision of hell in full flow, but also to consign oneself to a grisly and extremely unpleasant death. Caves serve a war herd well, so long as they are near a good supply of running water and offer a good view of the surrounding woods. Beastmen follow their food, so once they exhaust an area of fauna and prey, they move on to some other camp. Their constant movement puts them into contact with other beastmen, and battles inevitably ensue. After a particularly successful raid, the war herd will typically celebrate through the night, parading around the fireplace drunkenly, feasting on captives and enjoying the spoils of their victory. By noon the following day, the herd will have abandoned its camp and moved on, discarding anything that cannot easily be carried. The beastmen are locusts upon the world, using up its resources and moving on. The lands that the beastmen use to hunt their prey are known collectively as blood grounds. Every single creature within the Beastman's bloodground is prey, whether it flees as do the goblins, evades as do the wood elves, or fights back as do the men. Even the act of marching to war is akin to the hunt, of tracking or stalking the prey. Battle itself is like unto the act of a predator running down its prey, or the clash of rivals fighting to the last to determine the right to leadership and territorial dominance. The beastmen that lurk within the Forest of Shadows, for example, are constantly at war with others who would shelter in its darkness. Every new day, the warherds clash with forest goblins, human bandits, and the shambling hordes of rotten corpses raised by reclusive necromancers who hide from prying eyes in the woods. Because of this, the warherds of the Forest of Shadows, though few in number, are amongst the strongest and most belligerent in the entire old world. When their strength waxes and they dominate their rivals within the Forest of Shadows, they make war upon foes outside of it. It is then that the lands of men truly know the raw strength of the beastmen. Occasionally, the warherds of the Forest of Shadows have fought such successful wars against the others that dwell there that their enemies have been driven out of the forest to plague the lands all about. The wood elves in particular hate the children of chaos with a burning passion, for the beastmen are the opposite of all they stand for. When the two races encounter one another, a raging battle occurs. Should the beastmen prevail, they take perverse delight in chasing the elves down with packs of specially trained hounds. A beastman that catches and eats a wood elf earns the honorific Fey Killer, and little else, for the beastmen find elf flesh stringy and unsatisfying, with barely enough meat on the bone to feed an Ungor. Well, that's just about all I have for you today. Be sure to tune in next time for some more wargaming content. Thanks very much for watching. Peace.